Well, hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our Fireside Chat. We're going to be talking about leadership to someone who knows a lot about it. It's Darden Business School Dean Scott Beardsley, who spent almost a lifetime at McKinsey as a senior partner. And at McKinsey, in fact, he was in charge of their academy that did teach leadership, among other things. And since he's been at the University of Virginia as the dean of the Darden School, he's actually formulated his own course on leadership. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, John, great to be here. Thank you.
And when I think of Darden, I think primarily of two things. I think of the exceptional teaching in the classroom, and I think about the case study approach to learning. And I wonder how the two of those very important attributes of the MBA experience at Darden coincide with each other to create the opportunity to build leaders.
Well, I think the experiential learning is the way you learn best. And so having a great professor that helps you to learn from each other and about yourself is what it's all about. You learn by doing, and the case method that is facilitated by a master teacher is one of the best ways to learn. You think about it, I'm a tennis player, as you know, and the way I think about getting better at tennis is you go out on the tennis court and you hit the ball. You learn a lot more by doing that than you do just sitting there watching Wimbledon on TV. Of course, you can learn something watching, but while you're an active learner and you're testing your learning, that's what it's all about. So Darden is about an active classroom where you learn by doing. And a great teacher, if we think back on our lives, is always someone who can change your life and really make you learn more than you ever thought, and then help you put it into practice is what the case method does. And so it's that combination.
So true. Now, does Darden have a general philosophy about teaching leadership?
I wouldn't say there's just one way of teaching about leadership. There's many different ways, and there's many aspects of being a leader, in my view. But what Darden is really great at is creating general managers, as you know, because you master all the rankings. Darden's been ranked #1 in the world for general management many times. And that means that you're ready to be a senior executive or a leader in whatever context you're in. The word manager and leader in many ways are interchangeable, because in order to be a successful manager, you also need to be able to lead other people. And I'm very proud that Darden is viewed as, the top general management school in the world, because that means that we're creating leaders that are ready to thrive in any number of environments, whether it's a small entrepreneurial environment or a large corporate environment.
And the experiential learning you spoke about earlier, which kind of happens in the case study discussion when you essentially take the role of a protagonist and what the protagonist needs to do in a given challenge, is extended further in the Darden curriculum. I know you have experiential projects and you have global immersions. Can you talk a little bit about how they inform the school's view on leadership?
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, John, leadership is a global area. It's not something that's just unique to the United States. Every country in the world needs strong leaders. Every company in the world needs strong leaders. And so creating the next generation leaders is about preparing people to lead in any number of contexts, including the global context. And leadership is always done in context. You're leading in a given setting. And if you're leading in Charlottesville, that's one thing. If you're leading in Singapore or in Dubai, it's yet a different thing. There may be some commonalities, but there's some differences too, like how do you adapt to different cultural settings? So Darden not only prepares leaders because of the case method and the active learning environment, but we also have a very global student body. So this year will be a record number of international students at Darden. We also have every single student does what we call a worldwide immersion. You go study in another country. And this is very important because most businesses are in many ways global. And you also have people that come from all over the world. So not only do you need to be able to interact with people from different cultures and to have different stakeholders that come from different cultures. You need to know how to lead in different settings, because you never know when you might be asked to move somewhere, like I was as a young man moving from New York to Belgium, where I ended up living 24 years. And that was, a unique experience for me, but that made me a global leader. So leadership is also about bringing the best that the world has to bear into your setting. And that's why I believe when you use the word global, for me, in many ways, it's synonymous with excellence, because you have to be able to bring the best of what the world needs into whatever setting you're parachuted into. And Darden does that.
Now, most deans rarely teach, but you have found the time to teach several courses, including one on leadership. I wonder if you could bring us back to when you were actually creating that course and the kinds of things that you wanted to instill in your students.
Yeah, well, it's true what you say, that my teaching load is actually zero. I'm not required to teach, but this next year I'll be teaching 5 courses at least and guest teaching in a couple of others. And the reason I do that is that, first of all, I love teaching and I love students. So it's a firsthand way to develop a relationship with the students and to know what's on their mind. Secondly, I thought it was a great opportunity for myself as a non-traditional academic to learn from some of the best teachers in the world. So I had this unique opportunity to improve myself as well. And then thirdly, I said, gosh, wouldn't it be great to create a course that's sort of the greatest hits on leadership development based on my different experiences in life. And I call the course, that particular course, which is one of the 5 I teach, Maximizing Leadership Potential in Business and Sports. And the genesis of that was I've seen, not only as an athlete myself, as a tennis player, but also in different settings, including McKinsey, some commonalities and some differences about what does it take to be successful and to get the most out of yourself. And I thought I would create a course that basically is about how do you get the most out of your life. Because leadership is not just about a level of responsibility, it's also about leading yourself first so that you can then lead others. And I thought, gosh, it would be wonderful to have a class where I could get to know the students intimately. The final paper is really about how are you going to get the most out of your life. And I teach it in the original Thomas Jefferson classroom in our UNESCO World Heritage Site that happens to be my dining room. And it's a wonderful, intimate experience. We have about 20 students, and we compare different leadership frameworks from both sports and business, and also from the military. And we see what we can learn, both in terms of commonalities and differences, and what can you take away to make your life better. That's, in essence, the genesis of the course. And I created it out of thinking also about the tennis program at UVA, which is one of the best in the world. We won 4 of the last 9 national titles. And the tennis coach was a friend of mine. And I thought that it would be helpful to him also as a tennis coach to crystallize some leadership lessons. So there were a number of things I was trying to accomplish with the class, maybe too many, but so far it's worked well.
What have you learned about leadership just by assembling the class and bringing in these guest lecturers?
John, for me, learning about leadership is a lifelong journey. It's never, the journey to be your best self is a lifelong journey. It's not something that has a final endpoint. So what I've learned is that I still have a lot to learn about being my best self. And I've learned that you can learn from many different contexts, and that there's a lot of wisdom from different eras that still is relevant today. So whether you're looking at Aristotle, or whether you're looking at tennis, the inner game of tennis, or West Point or what McKinsey does. There are different lessons that you can take away. And if you're curious, you can still improve a lot as a leader. I still feel like I have a lot to learn about leadership. And I can't crystallize every lesson about leadership into a pithy phrase, except to say that it is a lifelong journey, and it is about a continuous pursuit of excellence for yourself. And that if you want to be a great leader, it starts with your inner self, and that will help you to get the best out of other people. And ultimately, the greatest leaders of all are those who are able to harness the skill set of so many other people. You're only one person, but the person that's able to harness the strengths and talents of thousands of others ends up being a more successful and more productive leader.
Unlike finance, marketing, accounting in a business school curriculum, leadership is often thought to be a so-called soft skill. And yet many people find it to be quite hard. Do you find that in your students?
I think a lot of students do find it difficult because many students come to school or to class looking for a black and white answer. So the equation solves to this number. And many decisions in leadership, the higher you go, the more difficult the decisions become. I think it was Barack Obama who said, by the time decisions get to me, there are no easy decisions, because they would have been made at different levels. And there's a lot of truth to that. And so, as a leader, you have to be ready to deal with very difficult, non-black and white, non-binary situations that are very tricky, often with ethical dilemmas, where the answer is not black or white. Sometimes it's really simple, right? It's just, okay, yes, do it, obvious. But many times it's tricky and it's not so clear, and you have to balance the interests of many stakeholders, and you cannot please everybody. One of the key lessons that many students, but many adults growing up in the business ranks, is that you can't please everybody. It's impossible. And how you go about making the decision, and why you made the decision, and how you articulate why you made the decision sometimes matters more than what the decision itself is. You just leap to a conclusion that can be very damaging. But if you went through a process that people feel was fair, you have a better chance of having a good outcome.
Now, I know this question is going to seem like it simplifies what is a complicated and nuanced subject, leadership. But I wonder if you can identify 3 key leadership skills that students generally need to be successful in business.
I think there's a long list, and I haven't prepared 3, so I'm just going to answer off the top of my head.
Great.
The first is, I really think that you need to have the right mindset. You need to have like a servant leader mindset. You need to be in the service of other people, and seeking to find alignment with some kind of a mission. Because I believe that when you do, you get your best result. So a mindset that is related to a mission. Secondly, I think great leaders anchor themselves in values and some form of ethics, principled leadership. You need to have guiding principles or a set of values that anchor you when you're faced with a storm. At the end of the day, a lot of times decisions have to be made on values and principles. And the third thing, and some people won't like this answer, I really do believe it requires hard work. I believe you get out of something what you put into it. And if you want to be a great leader, You don't get there by aspiring to the least level of effort possible. Great people that do great things also put strong energy into it. I'm not saying you shouldn't be efficient. You shouldn't have a balance in your life. You should be a workaholic. I'm not saying that, because I believe that through the balance, you also get your best self. But I've rarely seen people become their best self or become a great athlete or become a great leader by being lazy. I've never seen that. And the people that I admire, and that anyone you look at in the world that you respect as a leader, you'll usually find somebody that's put a lot of effort in. And I have great respect for that. You know, my grandfather was a dairy farmer, and every morning he was up at 3:30 in the morning milking the cows. And I don't know anybody who worked harder than him. And you know what? I regard him as a leader because he did what he did with great integrity and with great effort. And you know, whatever it is you're doing, the area that you choose to lead, it could be in your community, it could be for your country, it could be for a not-for-profit, or it could be for a private equity firm. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're choosing to lead in a context or even in a family, but you need to put effort in. That would be the third thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to be made. It also seems to me like the way you talk about leadership is almost like a way of life. I mean, when you mention your grandfather getting up at 3:30 in the morning to start the work on a farm, and you talk about how it should inform all the aspects of your life and every role that you play. It sounds like you define leadership as something central to character. Am I right?
Yes, that was the relationship there to the values, which I think are related to your character. And, you know, I believe that, okay, there's the age-old battle between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation being grades, money, rankings, wins and losses, things you can measure, and the way our society is obsessed about. Intrinsic motivation is more related to your character and the values that matter more to you. Your curiosity, your ability to be kind, to be generous, to be fair, things like that. Fundamental character values and traits that resonate with your inner self. Now, it's clear that money and extrinsic mechanisms do motivate human beings. There's no doubt about it. But beyond a certain level, they don't. Once you have enough, let's say, basic necessities, everyone has their own point of deciding what is enough. But usually your best performance comes out when you can get alignment with your character. Or put another way, if you pursue extrinsic rewards in a way that is not aligned with who your character is, later in your life, you find yourself in a crisis. Mm-hmm. It's an internal crisis. It's called a midlife crisis. It's called anxiety. It's called depression. It's called I'm not happy. Or it's called what did I just do with my life if it was not connected to your central character. The other thing is that success is something that you can define for yourself. And this is something that people forget. And I wrote a graduation speech on it. If anybody wants to see it on YouTube, I've written one of my graduation speeches on this very topic. But most people allow themselves to have success be defined by others. When you're young, by your parents, and then by your university, and then by your corporation that has hired you. Someone else is deciding what success looks like. But actually, John, one of the great powers that you have as an individual is to define success for yourself and to anchor that to who you really are, who your true self is, what character, values, and traits matter to you. And if you do that, you can be successful in life and very fulfilled in the way that you are meant to be, rather than the way that somebody else meant your life to be for you and without consulting you.
Wow, that's a very powerful thought. So, Scott, it used to be that leadership was considered something like entrepreneurship in this way, that it was something you either had or you didn't have, and it couldn't be taught. And now I think clearly it's seen as a skill to cultivate on a consistent basis. And more practice you get at it, conceivably, the better you might be. So I wonder if there are a couple of things that you would advise students to do each day to kind of flex their leadership muscles, their leadership IQ, and their capabilities.
Yes. Well, the first thing is to realize at whatever level you are in life, you have an opportunity to lead every day. And it starts with yourself. You can choose what you're doing with your time and how to lead in a given context. The way I explain it to some of the people on the tennis team, for example, and as you can tell, I'm quite the tennis fanatic. The way you play a tennis match is a metaphor for life. So if you win the match by cheating, by cussing, by throwing your racket, what does that say about you as a person? Have you really won the match? Or have you lost while winning? Or another way of saying it philosophically is, can you lose a match and actually win? So if you play Rafael Nadal and you are my level, and if you would win one game out of 5 sets, is that a victory or a loss? Like, he would have won all 5 sets clearly, right? But if I would ever get one game out of him, could that be a win? Or even being on the court healthy enough to play or even hit the ball across the net, could that be the victory? So my point is that it's all relative. So one thing that anyone can do is to lead in their given setting on that day. The second thing you can do is to think about what your character traits are that matter to you. One that I like very much is to look at Martin Seligman's value in action, character strengths. There's a survey that he has online, it's free. And you can figure out which character strengths matter the most to you and reflect on why you are doing what you're doing. At Darden, we call this putting your why to work. And what we mean by that is you could be doing something, and I'm doing the same job, but we could be doing it for 2 different reasons. Sort of like flying on an airplane. We could be sitting next to each other, but we could be flying to the same destination for 2 different reasons. And each one is valid, but you choose why you're doing something. You may be choosing to do a very high-paying job because you want to give the money away, like Chuck Feeney, who founded General Atlantic. Phenomenal man. He gave away all his money, $8 billion worth, and most of it was anonymous. Why did he want to earn a lot of money? So he could give it away. That's the example. So why are you deciding to do X today? Any student, any young person can think about that. And the other thing that you can always do is at the end of every day, ask yourself, what are you grateful for? And what did you learn today? And those are very simple things, but being curious about life and also being willing to step back and say, gosh, am I lucky in a certain way? Those are simple things that anybody can do, and it will make you feel a lot happier.
Yeah, you've provided a lot of actionable advice here already. But I want to make the observation that a lot of MBAs go into the experience with a post MBA goal in mind. And maybe it is to work in a certain career or in a certain geography, or work for a McKinsey or a Goldman or a Microsoft or an Amazon. Rather than going into the MBA program thinking, okay, what kind of person and leader do I want to be? And what does it take to develop that?
Yeah.
I wonder if you might have some advice for students who are about to take their own MBA journeys to get them focused on that self-development piece that's so critical to a really good MBA program.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is that if you're accepted into a top MBA program like Darden, it means that you belong there. There's a lot of students who feel that they don't belong or they have imposter syndrome. They shouldn't feel that way. You belong. That's the first thing, is be confident that you can succeed. The second thing is, I really do understand the need or the desire of the student to want to land that first job and being very transactional about it. They have a very clear objective, or they think they have a very clear objective in mind. I understand that. I was there, and they want to land a great paying job. They want to pay back their student loans. I was absolutely broke when I graduated from business school, and I just had student loans to my name and a young wife, and we wanted to have a family, and we didn't own any house or any apartment. We had nothing. So I wanted a job too. And I wanted to get a job in consulting. And it was really important to me because I wanted first to pay back my loans. So I understand that need, very transactional. But in that process, it's very easy to get so much anxiety and stress that we don't bring our best self to the table. The first part of that stress is about, I don't belong, or I'm not good enough. No, you're good enough. Believe in yourself is the best advice I can give to anybody. Believe in yourself, invest in yourself. You're making the best investment you can by doing an MBA. You're investing in yourself. And the second thing is, it's okay to aspire to a job, but be flexible in what might come out of it. You don't know what the future will hold always. That was the subject of my graduation speech this year, called the certainty of uncertainty. And I would encourage anybody that's worried about the future and feels some kind of stress or anxiety about that to watch that speech. I really did write that in the middle of COVID, because COVID amplified normal levels of anxiety, which are very, very high anyways.
Right.
And so give yourself time, realize that the most certain thing in life is uncertainty. And check out that speech for, if you're interested in, A Few Kernels of Wisdom. That's another thing I would say. And then the third is, look at the job search process itself as a course, or as a learning process, not as a destination. The destination is not, I got the offer, because then the problem is, oh, well, should I accept the offer, or should I wait till I get more offers? And then, but what if I accept this one? What about the one after that? So the uncertainty in some ways never ends. So really, if you look at the job process, I say, be ready to get 100 rejections, at least. And out of that process, say, okay, what were the best interview questions I learned? So that when I'm interviewing candidates in the future, I'm going to take the best ones that I learned. What were the most effective ways to learn? What did I learn about this industry or that industry by interviewing with them? If you look at it that way, you can't fail. You can only succeed, because you're going to be learning in every single interview, in every company and every industry. And when you come out the backside on the other end, you're going to have a job, and you'll be better for it. So if you can just enjoy that journey, that's the other piece of advice.
I think it was Steve Jobs who said the journey is the reward. I think he's right.
That's right.
Scott, a pleasure as always. I can't wait to get to Charlottesville and maybe sit in your class in your dining room in Pavilion 1 during one of those leadership sessions. I think it'd be a real treat.
Anytime, John. Would love to have you. Please come to Charlottesville as soon as possible. We'll be in person like we were this entire last academic year. So looking forward to it.
Indeed. All right. That's Scott Beardsley, the Dean of the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia. You've been watching our Fireside Chat for Center Court on Leadership. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.